Hello, and welcome to the Tuning In podcast. I'm Dana Evans, your inner voice and emotional support coach. In this podcast, we explore the deep wisdom that lives in our bodies, emotions, and inner voice. Together, we'll shed the layers that no longer serve us, creating space to tap into the flow of life and experience true ease. So, are you ready to join me? Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Tuning In podcast. Today, we are going to talk about living in Groundhog Day. Not the Groundhog Day where the actual groundhog comes out of its hole and tells us if we have 6 more weeks of winter or not, but Groundhog Day like the movie where you feel like you're living the same day over and over again. We're going to talk about how to break the spell of the Groundhog Day mentality and really help you wake up out of that spell instead of feeling like you're trapped in a loop of everyday life. Are you ready? Before we get into that, I did want to share an exciting announcement for me, which is I am officially recording from my office. I have not been able to do that since we moved into this house because for some reason, my office was so echoey. And so every time I tried to sit down and record a podcast, the sound quality was really not good. But my vision has been to turn this not just into a single function room as an office for me, but into more of a library lounge. And finally, we're making progress. So a couple months ago, my dad came and helped me install bookshelves, so hanging bookshelves. So those are up. I ordered some beautiful wallpaper that's going to go on one of the walls, and then we're going to paint the others. And I ordered this wonderful wool rug and a couch. Just by adding this new rug and couch in here, suddenly the room doesn't echo. I am blown away. So it feels so good. I'm sitting on the couch. I am cozy. I have these sheepskin pillows, which are so soft. Mia is sitting here next to me. She has never wanted to be in my office because it was not a cozy space. So now she is evidence of my vision coming into fruition because she feels cozy in here. I feel cozy in here. I put my desk in a corner and already I am 10 times happier being in this space and I cannot wait to bring it all together. I am recording photos and videos and I hope at some point when this is done, I'll have a reel of the before and after. Meanwhile, all of my office stuff, which I need to go through, I have furniture that I'm going to sell and just things that I need to find new homes for. All of that is now in our living room and dining room. So that is messy. As often happens when you are trying to create a new space, it makes your other spaces messy. So I am so happy to be my beautiful, clean, spacious office. But meanwhile, when I enter into the living room and dining room, all of my stuff is there. So I have some work to do. But I'm so excited to be here sharing from that space. Anyway, let's get into our Groundhog Day discussion. So, what do I mean exactly when I say it feels like you're living Groundhog Day, the same day over and over? Your daily life starts to feel so routine and so mundane that it feels like a trap. Like all you can do is just go through the same things, check the boxes, and just get through the day. And it feels boring. It feels exhausting. It feels maybe soul-sucking. It feels like, what am I even doing? I can't break free. All I can do is just wake up, do my things, go to sleep, rinse, and repeat. And it's this continual, endless cycle. I know personally, I felt that really strongly in 2020 and 2021. I think I recorded a podcast episode about it. I'll have to look that up. But it was really intense. And then since then, I've had it in and out with different aspects of my life where some things just feel so darn repetitive. And I wanted to talk about this. I wanted to address it and talk about ways that we can, like I said, break out of that spell and reset your day-to-day life so it doesn't feel like a trap. So it doesn't feel like you're just doing the same things over and over again. Because life, I want us all, myself included, to feel like we're living in this life and not just merely existing. So on that note, first, I want to check in. And whenever you're starting to feel this way mentally, I do feel like that the Groundhog Day is a mentality. Because the reason I say that is because sometimes you can have the exact same set of circumstances and feel fine about them. And then sometimes you can feel like they're repetitive, exhausting, mundane, and you're trapped in them. That to me indicates that we're dealing with more of a mindset, mentality issue, a perspective issue, than an actual issue. But we're going to address it from both the perspective and the action taking side of things so that you have like multiple ways to address this when you have Groundhog Day syndrome. But first and foremost, always, always, always check in with your whole system and check in with yourself. First, I want to ask, like, is this Groundhog Day or is this a functional freeze issue? So are you dealing with, my life feels boring, or are you dealing with, I'm frozen and I'm barely getting through the day. I can check things off, but I can't find any muster, any energy, any joy in it. If it's more of the functional freeze, I am going to direct you to episode 147 and 156 of this podcast because I really dive into functional freeze and what to do and how to break out of that. This episode will also help, but those are worth listening to because you might want to address the somatic aspect first before getting into these other things that we talk about today. The next thing you want to check on is, are your basic needs being met? So are you hydrated? Are you drinking water? Are you getting outside? Are you breathing? Are you experiencing movement, nature? Are you eating? Are you eating enough? Are you well fed and consuming nutrient-dense food or supplements? Always start there. I cannot tell you the number of times where I've felt so blasé about my life only to realize I hadn't been outside, I hadn't had water, I was hungry, and all of those things were making me feel exhausted and like my life had no spark in it. So we always want to start there. Then we can address the feeling that you're kind of drowning or that life feels flat or that you're just living on repeat every single day through a few key steps that I've outlined. So first of all, oh man, it's really, really useful to slow down. Right now we're in late fall, moving into winter, and so it's even more valuable to slow down because the season is literally asking us to do so. This is why I'm creating the Winter Indulgence program. It's all about slowing down and finding the rhythm of our bodies and the rhythm of nature and not forcing and pushing through this chaos and busyness and stress of the season, finding a deeper anchor to slow down. One of the best ways to slow down is to become more present to your senses. So what do I mean when I say present to your senses? We're noticing touch, smell, taste. We're seeing things. And we're probably more attuned to our sixth sense, our intuition. When we are sensitized to the senses, life literally becomes more vibrant because we're aware of all that is happening. But in order to do that, we do have to slow down. And what does slowing down mean? Literally walking slower, breathing a little bit slower, making movements a little bit slower. This one's hard for me, driving a little bit slower. When we slow down, we can notice the beauty and joy in life that is all around us. Pausing at the window and looking at the birds eating from the feeder. Or how good it feels to brush your own hair. Like, you get out of the shower, it's like, brush, 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 blow dry your hair, whatever you gotta do. Have you paused and just felt the brush running over your scalp and spent a few moments doing that? It feels amazing. Or when you're in the shower, how delicious the soap smells. When you're on the walk, hearing the crunch of the leaves and rocks beneath your feet. Maybe you're washing the dishes and you stop for a moment and feel the warm water washing over your hands, or a moment of peace once the kids are asleep. The slowing down, it's not about radically changing your life, but it's about redirecting your attention and opening to the new experiences that are already there, even in the seemingly mundane tasks. It's about being alive and tuning in to the aliveness of life instead of just zipping by. Step 2, scaling back. When I hear people in either state of like, I'm just going through the motions and it all feels flat and repetitive, or I'm so overwhelmed by all that I have to do, it feels like I'm spinning and there's too much information, right? Again, these can be really similar experiences. The tips that I'm talking about will help with either. For either of those, scale back. Go back to the basics and do less so you can evaluate everything that you're doing. So often our to-do list is just forever mounting, forever growing. It's never something that you're going to get done. And we tend to try to do our way out of the list. The more you do, the more you have to do. If you get it all done and you have space and you haven't slowed down yet, you're going to figure out more things to do. We're always trying to get ahead. We're always trying to catch up. And we're always trying to tackle this list. We don't want to add more to our mundane list just to feel more, right? Sometimes it's like, well, maybe if I do more, it will be more exciting. Maybe if I do more, it won't feel like I'm living the same day over again. But I would recommend first you scale back before you add anything. More often than not, what you need is not more things. You need space, quiet, a pause of reflection to actually see why things feel so blah. What is it about this thing that feels blah? What am I avoiding? In those moments, you probably will have an internal shift that leads to an external change. So often we try to externally change our way out of things to shift the inside, but it can be a lot easier to pause and be with yourself on the inside for the natural shifts to happen externally. There was a time when I was feeling like my morning was so repetitive and it didn't feel like something I wanted to get up for. One of the tasks on my morning list, one of the things I do is I brush Mia, and she loves being brushed every morning. But I was feeling so over it. I didn't want to put in the effort and I didn't want to brush her. But when I slowed down and was looking at what things I wanted to scale back, I was like, well, I don't want to brush Mia. But I actually paused and realized how much she loves being brushed, how much joy, how much she basks in that sensation. When I looked at it through that lens, again, I was looking to scale back in this time. That was one of the things I was going to cut out. And then as I was brushing her, I was attuned through slowing down to how much she loves this. It really hit me hard. Like, who am I to deny her of that joy? It was a really big one. So I scaled back on other things in my morning routine. One of the things I didn't scale back on was brushing Mia. Now when I brush her, I really pay attention to her and what this is giving my sweet cat who does not ask for much and gets 2 minutes of brushing and loves it and then goes and eats her breakfast and carries on with her day. I am doing it for her joy, which brings me joy, which completely changed the experience. Another thing that you can do is you can time yourself. This is something I grew up with. My brother has forever scarred me. I am a sucker for being timed. And so when things were feeling mundane and I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do? I actually timed some of my activities. And one of the things that I was over was unloading the dishwasher. Well, I timed it and it takes me maybe 7 minutes. And I was like, okay, Do I want those 7 minutes back, which I could have said yes to? Or do I want what those 7 minutes give me? Because so much of this is like we're taking something mundane and we're putting a new spin on it. We're seeing it through different eyes. And when I really thought about it, I was like, you know what? I like unloading the dishwasher because then it keeps the kitchen clean the rest of the day. One of my favorite things in the world is a clean kitchen. If I don't unload the dishwasher in the morning, if I don't spend those 5 to 7 minutes, then the dishes pile up in the sink, and then we don't have room in the sink, and then they pile up on the counter. And then when you want to clean the kitchen, you first have to unload the dishwasher. So it creates this whole ripple effect. And then I was like, well, is there anything I like about unloading the dishwasher? And actually there is. I like doing it in a really orderly way. It gives me a little dopamine hit. It just changed how I saw it. What I did take out in the morning gave me space to see the things that I wanted to keep and see them through a different lens. I do want to scoop the litter box. Like, I do have to feed myself. You have to feed your kids. You have to take the dog for a walk. There are things we have to do. So within that lens, you also get to say, okay, well, do I want to keep feeling terrible about it? If I'm not going to change what I'm doing, can I change how I see it? And that's what that third step is, right? So step 1, slow down. Step 2, scale back. And step 3 is shift how you see the thing that you're doing. This is genuine. I didn't pretend to like brushing my cat. I tuned into a different energy of brushing her, and it has completely changed how I feel about it. And the same thing with the dishwasher. I am so unbothered by the dishwasher now. I just do it. And I'm like, cool. Now it's done. I'm over it. Carry on. It doesn't feel like a weight. It doesn't feel like a trap anymore. And even though it is repetitive every day, it doesn't bog me down. The next option is to do it differently. Do you always take the same walk? Do you always cook the same meals? Do you always do the same workouts? Is life just one big to-do list? Maybe it's time to try something new. This might mean stop doing what you have been doing. So if you always go to a workout class at 4 p.m., maybe you change that up. Or if you always go on a walk and you always go in the same path, maybe it's time to do a freaking different path. Do you always cook the same 3 meals every week? Maybe it's time to choose a different meal. Or maybe you make really complicated meals and it's tiring and it's time to really simplify and just make really basic meals. This can look so many different ways depending on what you're dealing with. Doing something differently, changing up the routine even in a small way, like leaving the house and walking left instead of right, can revive you and revive your energy. Because remember, point 1 is slowing down. Point 1 is sensitizing to the world around you. When it feels like life is on repeat and it's just the same day over and over, it means we're disconnected and disembodied from the vibrancy of life. The vibrancy of life is still there even if you don't feel it. What we're trying to do here is plug back into that vibrancy even in the day-to-day routine tasks. So doing something different is a really good way to experience that. I do this big errand run on Saturdays usually, and it was starting to feel like a burden. I did a couple of things. 1, I was gone for an out of town and on a different routine, so I wasn't doing my errands. 2, when I noticed I wasn't doing them, I also acknowledged what was it about them that I didn't like. And I realized that the errands were my only time that I was engaging in the town of Santa Fe. And so I felt like I was never really able to enjoy and appreciate the town because I only went there to do business. I was there on a mission. I was there to get things done. And then 3, so that's like the slowing down part, right? I would go too fast and just be like, how can I be as efficient as possible to knock out 7 to 10 stops in a single morning and just get it done and get it over with so I can get home? And then I would crash. Then I was reevaluating like, well, what am I actually doing? I'm only doing the focus work part of it. I'm not having any fun and enjoying it. And then 3, well, do I actually have to do all the things I do every weekend? And the answer was a resounding no. I want to do them, but some weekends I can just make 2 stops and be done and come home. Or I can break them up into a couple days, do one on the weekend, one during the week. And it totally shifted how I saw my errands. Then, of course, being away from them for a while, so I removed errands from my to-do list. When I returned home and went on my next errand run, I was so delighted because I love my community. I was slowing down. The places I went, I'd like go to the bread shop and then sit and have a cup of coffee and talk to the barista. And I was so much more joyful because I was tuned in to why. I don't have to do these the way I do them. I'm choosing to. And if I'm going to choose to do it, why make it this big freaking production and burden that I alone carry? I was quite honestly kind of being a victim about these errands, but it's like when I'm gone, John just orders groceries from Whole Foods and has them delivered. So clearly, I don't need to make 7 stops in order for this to be food in the house and in order for us to function. But I love the places I go. I love the bread shop. I love the butcher shop. I like going to the bird food place. I like our cute little liquor store. I love going to the special coffee shop for the special chips. I enjoy those things. And so if I don't feel like doing them, I don't have to. But if I'm going to do them, enjoy them and see them through a different lens and mix up the way that I do it, doing it differently. Another thing, I got stuck in this realm of just being at home all day, all the time, because I was so tired for my Saturday errands. I didn't want to go into town during the week because I had associated going into town with this big haul and this exhaustion. But what I realized was by going into town more often, it's actually more enjoyable. So just the other day, I was feeling tired around, say, 2:00, and I was like, I'm going to go into town. I'm going to drop off a return that I had to mail, and then I'm going to go to the cat cafe. And I went there, hung out with these sweet kittens, and spent 2 hours working and writing an email. It was such a joyful experience. That is vastly different than how I had been spending my days. So can you go to a coffee shop? Can you call up a friend and go on a walk with them? Do you want to try a new class? I've actually been looking at a Pilates studio nearby, and I thought, maybe once a week I go to a Pilates class, like just to get a change of scenery, to go into the community and to do a class versus doing yoga alone in my office or in my room at home. Remember, doing things differently, while it might feel uncomfortable because I'm sure you've mastered the efficiency in how you do your daily routine. If you switch it up, it might feel really good. Maybe instead of having lemon water in the morning, you make a morning tonic with cinnamon and star anise and lemon and clove. Maybe you go crazy and you have coffee instead of water first thing in the morning. Switching things up is so good for our brains. Yes, our brains love efficiency, but they also love newness. And so where can you find little things that can shift the way you do your day? And maybe it is you don't unload the dishwasher until the afternoon. Diversifying your schedule and even the order in which you do things can be really soothing. And then trying something different, even if it's just a different path on your walk, can feel so good. Remember, you're not a slave to your routines. Your routines are rituals that help you live in a meaningful way. Routines get to be rituals to help you live in a meaningful way. I'm like, do you hear that, Deanna? I'm hearing it for myself. So we don't want to be trapped by them. And when the season changes, when your desires change, when your urges change, you can change with them. Along the same lines, like I said, get out of the house. So even just today, so by the way, I recorded this episode yesterday at the end of the day. I was so tired. It was a rambling mess. So I left the office, I sat down and I mapped out what I wanted to talk about, thinking I would record it this morning. Well, today I woke up and started my day and I had no energy. Whereas yesterday I had a lot of energy, I had a lot of focus, a lot of excitement. Today I felt sapped and tired, and I was aimlessly wandering around the house. I had a whole to-do list, wasn't getting anything done. I was unfocused. Everything I tried to do was taking so long. It wasn't creative. I was like, you know what? This isn't working. I'm going to leave the house and get a change of scenery. Get out. So I went to a thrift store and ended up finding a cool little piece to replace something that had broken to hang on our wall. I'm so excited about it. I found a new restaurant that I went to and I had a little cup of soup for lunch. And then I don't want to cook tonight. I have a call at 6 and I didn't feel like coming up with a meal. I didn't have one planned. And so I picked up burritos and I came home. Now I'm ready to record my podcast. I rarely record a pod. It's 4 o'clock. I rarely am doing work stuff after 3 because I get tired. But today I had no energy, no clarity. It felt like effort and a drudgery to get something done. So I got out of the house and it changed the scenery. Sometimes that just means going on a walk. Sometimes it means stepping outside and feeling the sun soak into your skin. Again, we always want to get back into the senses. Maybe you just go outside and pick up some rocks or some dried plants to make a little bouquet. Seriously, I was on a walk yesterday. I was like, there are so many pretty dried plants in Santa Fe right now that I could just clip and make a beautiful dried flower bouquet. That's fun. That's getting me outside. That's doing something different. It's using a different part of my brain. It's breaking up a mundane routine. And usually it takes less time than we think. Other things, I just want to highlight that too, is working different parts of your brain. So maybe go to an art gallery, right? Go to a hot springs, like go swim in a pool, like do a paint by numbers thing. I saw this craft activity where you can take sprigs of rosemary and you make them into little wreaths. I think I'm going to make those and put them in the welcome boxes for the winter indulgence people. Anything to remind you that life is beautiful, that there is textures and scents and sounds, beautiful things all around you all the time. It could be as simple as watching the sunset on a walk or going outside during a snowstorm and making a snow angel. Break yourself free. Maybe you need to clean out your closet and get rid of the clothes that feel blah that you wear the same freaking thing every day and buy yourself a new sweatsuit or challenge yourself to wear a new outfit once a week. I put on a full outfit today and I was like, wow, I feel so fancy. I have an outfit on and jewelry. Let it be fun. And this is what I am always saying to myself, like when I'm feeling that drudgery of life, where's the spark? Where's the match striking, creating a flame? And sometimes it's just lighting a candle and putting on some music. Sometimes it's calling a friend and having a meaningful conversation, or making a cup of hot tea and taking a walk around the neighborhood. There's so many things that we can do that can help break us out of the blahs. One of my favorite things is tending to yourself. If you're feeling like you're in a groundhog rut, it's actually pretty likely that you aren't truly tending to your own needs. Maybe you're checking off your walk, your workout, your meals, your skincare routine. But are you actually listening to and attending to your needs right now? Body, what are you asking for? Because if you're in this groundhog mentality, if that's your perspective, that is a signal that something's out of alignment. There's a spark that's not necessarily missing, but it's muted. So we want to dust off the to-do list, right? Dust off the mundaneness and say, where is the spark? What wants to ignite? You get caught up in keeping up and attending to external forces and people that you can get left behind, especially during this winter season. So this is a chance to do something for you that shows your system that you care. Maybe you take off that old toenail polish and give yourself a foot scrub. Apply some oil or lotion and put on cozy socks and get into bed an hour earlier. Maybe you take the night off from responsibilities and you sit down and read a book. I know, moms, that might not be an option for you. I'm just throwing out ideas here. But maybe you take the night off from cooking and you pick up a pizza or throw in a frozen pizza, go out to dinner, or you finally schedule a facial, buy the candle that you've been eyeing, or have a really good phone date with someone. tending to our own needs is so beautiful. In fact, the other day, I took a full service shower and I sat down first and trimmed my nails, trimmed my cuticles, did like a whole nail routine. Then I took a shower and I was basking in washing my hair. I had one of those scalp massager brushes that I use to massage my scalp. I washed my face. I did a body scrub. Oh my gosh. Got out of the shower, put on my favorite body oil, did a face mask. All of this didn't really take that long, but I did it at the end of the day, and then I crawled into bed with a bedtime tea, and I was in heaven because I took some time to take care of my body. Like, my nails were gross. My nails were a mess. My body was feeling scaly because it's getting drier. Oh, and then I added water to the humidifier. Okay, here we are. We're back. We're paying attention, body. We're paying attention. It can be so easy to get caught up in everyone else's needs, especially if you're a parent. I see you. It is so much to tend to, but truly, you can't forget about yourself. So if you can outsource. Like, instead of doing your own toenails, get a pedicure. But don't forget about yourself right now. If you're feeling this mundaneness in your life, this Groundhog Day, you have to become the center once again. Let yourself have that spark that ignites your passion for living everyday life. So there's 2 books that I'm reading right now, which is so funny because I've had this topic in mind for a while, and then these 2 books are absolutely in line with what we're talking about. So the first one is called Hero on a Mission by Donald Miller. And the second one is called Enchantment by Catherine May. So Hero on a Mission, in that book, Donald Miller brings up a term, I think, which is by Viktor Frankl, which is called existential vacuum. And he says, I now believe the existential vacuum is where many people live. It's that feeling that life should be better, more interesting, more fun, more rewarding, and more fulfilling. And then he goes on to say, Frankl, so Viktor Frankl, said man did not have a will to pleasure, but a will to meaning. And when man couldn't find meaning, he distracted himself with pleasure. Why are we so restless? Because ice cream is distracting but not fulfilling. Because alcohol offers a fabricated sense of peace. Because lust is not love. We distract ourselves with pleasure when we can't find a sense of meaning. Oh, that one hit me really hard. I was like, wow. And simply said, we often settle for temporary dopamine hits instead of deep meaning and fulfillment in our life, because those deeper, meaningful, fulfilling things actually take more energy and effort. When we already feel so exhausted, so depleted, when we're not tending to ourselves, when we're moving so fast, when we feel like we have to do all the things and we just have to get through the day, of course you're not going to want to sit down and do an art project. It's much easier to have the cocktail and watch the show. Trust me, I know. I do it all the time. Have you ever had something that you were working toward, something that was more meaningful in your life, that really propelled you forward and gave you momentum? Donald Miller talks about this. We have to have something that gives us a reason to get up in the morning, something bigger that we're moving towards. So my friend who's a mom, she recently ran her first marathon. She trained for this marathon in New York. And she has 2 kids and she's a full-time mom, and it was a lot to handle. Yet it gave her something to connect to. It gave her something also that was for her, right? That was tending to what she needed. I feel this with a launch. So all of a sudden, like, my restless and aimless energy gets to focus in a singular direction, and now it gets to be channeled into something. It quite literally wakes me up because I'm thinking about things I want to offer. Even when it's hard, it can be worth it. I remember years ago, my dad decided to start learning bread making. And he was making these beautiful loaves of bread every week. Out of the blue, a couple years ago, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, I felt the urge to learn horseback riding. And it's these things that put you back in this mentality of, oh, there is so much I don't know about life. There is so much that I can tap into, and there is so much that can bring meaning and deep shifts into my body. And when I'm feeling more fulfilled and connected in those things, I'm less likely to crave the cheap fixes of dopamine hits that actually aren't fulfilling. I talk about this all the time. I absolutely scroll through Instagram. Not right now. I deleted it because it was getting too much for me. I was drowning in Instagram, so I deleted it. Feels so much better. But I love watching shows. I love just like watching multiple movies in the afternoon. I think there's a time and place for all of this. And we have to be able to recognize within ourselves when I'm feeling that like lacklusterness for life. Is the TV really helping? Is the Instagram really helping? Is the alcohol really helping? Or is it furthering that energy of blah? What can break me out of it is something bigger to move toward that literally moves me. So it's not as superficial. It's like something's moving me. And again, you don't have to embark on this crazy journey that you write a book about. It's just something that's going to spark something with you. I remember during 2020, when we were all locked down, my friend down the street and I decided to do a Friday cocktail exchange. It was so fun because it gave me, I am not kidding, it gave me purpose during the week. I was like, ooh, what cocktail am I going to create? And it helped differentiate the days because at that time, all the days were exactly the same. So it was like I was giving myself something to work toward, and I wanted to get better at making cocktails. And so we'd come up with a fun idea like I would, and she and her husband would. And then we'd make them and leave them out on the porch, and then we'd swap cocktails. So they'd come and pick up the 2 cocktails I made, and they'd leave 2 for me and John. And it was this thing that it was a small gesture, but it created meaning in our days. It was something that brought us together. It caused creativity. It gave differentiation in the day, and it caused excitement. And so it can be as something as simple as that, or like my dad learning to make bread, or my friend running the marathon, or last winter when I was feeling low, I joined this face sculpting program. You probably heard all about it. I was learning fascial release in the tissues of my face, and it was great. And every day at 3:00, when I would normally crash and just want to watch TV for the rest of the day, I would sit down and do that. It actually helped my nervous system, and it helped me with breathing, and I was learning new things, and I was seeing improvements. Like, it is so crazy. And when I was reading about this in the book, it's so simple, but it really hit me. And that's what has actually caused me to move into this new launch of the Winter Indulgence Program. Because I was coming off of the high of the Emotions Decoded program, and I was kind of falling into that existential vacuum where you feel aimless, where you feel like everything's the same, where it's like, what's the point? What am I even doing? What's the purpose? What's my purpose? Does anything I do matter? At least those are things that were going through my head. And so then after I took some space, slowing down, scaling back, I had this idea of winter indulgence pop into my head. And I'm like, this is what I want for this season. I want to create community around this. Now it's shifted my momentum. That's the thing that breaks us up from living in the same old to living in a new challenge. Finally, I wanted to say, in the Enchantment book by Catherine May, she brings up this term called, let's see if I can say it, hierophany, Hierophany. I'm sorry if I butchered that. To describe the way that the divine reveals itself to us, transforming the objects through which it works. When we make a tree or a stone or a wafer of bread the subject of our worshipful attention, we transform it into a hierophany, an object of the sacred. Hierophany is the experience of perceiving all the layers of existence, not just seeing its surface appearance. The person who believes, be it in an ancient animism or a complex modern religion, lives in an enchanted world, having been given a kind of supernatural key to see wonder in the everyday. She's a really strong writer with a strong vocabulary. I have to look up words all the time in her book, by the way. So I have to reread passages because I'm like, this is dense. But what I took that to mean, this hierophany idea, is that we can find the wonder, or in her words, the enchantment, the magic, the spark in the everyday. We can take a stone that we find on a walk and have reverence for it. We can hear the water at bath time and it can spark joy within us. We can create these worshipful moments, these ritual indulgences, just by living our everyday life and by attuning to the beauty and magic that is there, by sensitizing ourselves to the joy, to the abundance, to the gratitude, not by thinking about it, but by having reverence for what is. Wow, we went into it, huh? I knew that I had a lot to share about this, and I wanted to do this episode justice because I know I am not alone in having this feeling, and I want us all to remember that there is this eternal spark, this eternal light within, and when it gets dim, it doesn't mean your light is going out. It just means it's gotten bogged down by thoughts, expectations, comparison, societal energy that has made us feel trapped, that has made us feel meaningless, that has made us feel like we're just doing the same shit day in and day out and not moving forward. It's like the idea of, I remember one time in Mexico, I remember watching these freaking guys raking the seaweed. I remember watching them being like, God, this is such a hapless task because they rake it and they rake it and bury it. And then it comes back. It washes back. Or a couple weeks ago, we got a big snowstorm and I went out and I shoveled. And then 2 hours later, the snow was back. And then I shoveled again. And then the snow was back. And then I shoveled again. And it's like, when do I catch up? I know that feeling. And I know I'm not alone in feeling that. And it doesn't mean your life isn't meaningful. And so we get to find the spark and the meaning and unburden ourselves so that we can get back to that light within and let it shine. And when that light is shining, the crazy thing is things look different through your eyes. That's when the perspective shift happens. In fact, when I did the shoveling a couple of weeks ago, I was in a really good place. I woke up at like 5:30 that morning. I saw the storm. I was like, I'm going to shovel because this is going to be a great workout for me. Boom. I remember shoveling last year and I was like, I am going to die. This feels so hard. I hate shoveling. This is so much work. What's the point? The snow keeps coming back. But this year I was like, this is great. And the second time, I was like, well, I already did so much shoveling the first time. The second time is going to be easier because I already did the heavy lifting. And then the third time I shoveled right before I went to sleep. I decided to do that because I knew the snow was going to stop. And I thought, ooh, if I finish shoveling now, when I wake up in the morning, the driveway is going to be clear and I'm going to have accomplished this. And it was. And it was such a different mindset. So I just want to remind you, when your inner light is strong and bright, when you've unburdened yourself from expectations, from comparison, from all the spinning, thinking thoughts by doing these practices that we talked about today, your perspective does shift. And that's when you access a different level of thinking, different insights, different perspectives in what is. And it's a really beautiful thing. It's pretty magical, actually. It's very different than writing a list of like, I'm grateful for every day and like just trying to think of 5 things so you can knock that off your list. It's the feeling of you get into the bed at the end of the day and you're overcome with delight because of how much you love your bed and the sheets and the warmth that it gives you. Very different than saying, I'm grateful for my bed. I'm grateful for my cat. It taps you into something deeper, but it's not coming from the mind. It's coming from that light that is so bright within you. So with that, thank you for listening to this longer episode. I trust that it gave you what you needed. And remember, our steps is we're checking in first. Do I have my basic needs met? Am I actually in a freeze response, in which case I'm going to address it somatically. Then I'm going to slow down, scale back, try to do things differently, mix it up, get out, tend to yourself, find some forward momentum, find a goal, find some meaning that is bigger than your day-to-day tasks. And then just remember that you do have this light within you and it is never going out, even if it feels dim at the moment. You can always step back into your light. Thank you, as always, for listening. And of course, if you would like to participate in the Winter Indulgence Program, we are surrendering to the season. We are tending to ourselves so that even when life gets busy, even when you feel a little chaotic, you will know that you haven't forgotten about yourself, because I am creating a really beautiful cocoon for us all to land in. It's not more work. I have created a beautiful gift box for you that each item you open each week will be a reminder, an anchor piece to bring you back to yourself. So if you even just get that moment to watch the sunrise or to watch the sunset, or to put your cozy socks on and give yourself a foot massage, or to have a cup of tea in silence for 2 minutes, it's going to anchor you back into yourself so you don't stumble into 2025 feeling behind, exhausted, burnt out, and like your goals are impossible because you've never caught up. But you're actually easing into 2025 because we're taking this program all the way into February. And really, you're not trying to build on an empty tank or a broken foundation. We're building the foundation now so that when it's time, when you're ready in the spring, you truly will emerge because you spent the time. You spent the energy. You attuned to yourself so you really could recharge, recalibrate, reflect. And that's what revitalizes and restores you so that you reemerge. And I'm so excited for that for you. So you are the tulip that we're planting right now. We're going to tend to your roots this season. And together we will rise up in the spring. So with that, thank you as always for joining and for listening, and I will put all of the information that you need in the show notes. We'll see you next week. Thank you for joining me in another episode of the Tuning In podcast. If you loved this episode, please rate and review it or share it with a friend. If you want to go deeper into the realm of emotions and learn the language of your body, check out my audio course, Emotions Decoded, at alignful.com/audio. As always, you can follow along with my journey on Instagram at Dana_Evans. See you next week.